have no idea.
But okay, let's welcome with a huge round of applause, Vitaly Friedman, co-founder and editor-in-chief of Smashing Magazine.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm freaking out about two things. First of all, I'm not sure if this is going to fall or not. And then this guy. Wow,
Yeah.
that's really scary. That's been freaking me out for a while. Can you hear me in the back? If not, can you just come closer? That might make things easier for me.
All those black chairs are also available. You're welcome to sit on those
Yes,
as well.
it's really nice to be here in this space. It looks nice. I'm still trying to figure out what this is.
That's the Tree of Life. And those are all excerpts from famous flatland stories.
Wow, that's very cool. Yeah, it's a nice space. Because remember, last time I came, it was like a year ago, and we were in different space. This is better.
All right.
So cheers.
Thanks for the shout out.
Yes, thank you. Now, I'm very happy to be back in Toronto. It's like my fourth or fifth time, and every single time I go to the same places. I'm sorry, I'm so predictable. But I like a lot of stuff. I like St. Lawrence Market. I also go to Kensington Market. It's like the crazy place that I love. I don't know. I have my coffee shop place. I have my spot. And if somebody is there, I say, you know, I'm here like in Toronto for like 2 days. Can you just give me my spot? And they're perfectly fine because, you know, you're very nice and humble people. You're very kind people. So I always sit in my spot, which has the perfect Wi-Fi. It's a different story. But it's really great to be back. And I'm also very, very happy to be speaking today to so many of you, so that's wonderful. I just coming from Malaysia, of all places. We had a Southeastern Asia tour exploring local communities. So it's like 16 hours time difference. I can see that, I can spot that. But the reason why we're doing this is actually because we want to connect with local communities, trying to explore what is happening. And I was really just surprised of how much is happening in Vietnam right now, for example. It's just booming like crazy. We always think about our world and their world. That's not how it is anymore. It's really surprising. Although in Vietnam, for example, of course, people are quite cheap compared to Toronto, I think. But, you know, it's booming. But it's not what I'm going to talk about today. I know why I'm talking about this. I'm too chatty. I had too much coffee on my spot. So today I want to talk about e-commerce, but specifically about the lessons we learned while working on e-commerce. So like 50% of my time these days is spent on smashing, like working on articles, working on redesign, working on conferences and other things. But 50% is spent in companies, being crazy in companies. So for some reason, many people invest a lot of trust in me. I still don't know why. So when I go in companies, I can do whatever I like. I can experiment, do all kind of A/B testing, just everything. And you know, if you're working with a big size company, just make a couple of tweaks in your checkout process, and then you can actually measure significant improvements, right? So I was just in a privileged position to be able to play with all the crazy ideas I've been having for the last 2-3 years. And so all of this is kind of coming now in the slides. How many of you actually attended FITC where I spoke? Okay, maybe like the first 10 minutes will be similar, but everything else is different. So don't freak out and don't leave. Okay? Now, how many of you are cat people? Who likes cats? How many of you are dog people? So in my scientific survey, as it turns out, most people are actually dog people. Like if you run the survey, you'll find out that 60% are dog people, 30% are cat people, and 10% just don't care, right? So that's too late for us because we have many cats. And today you're going to see some cats, but not too many. So please, if you don't like cats, that's okay. Now first, that's me. This is how I used to look like back in the day. But I co-founded the website, this little website, a while back. And it's been like 11.5 years ago. I feel so old. It's incredible. And it's going to look like this. We'll talk about this. It's red, I know. We'll talk about why and so on. But today specifically, oh, that's the wrong thing. Today specifically, I actually wanted to kind of look into the e-commerce perspective. Oh, that's the wrong slide deck. Just a moment. What was that? Yes, I want to talk specifically about 4 things in e-commerce. One of them, how do we frame a product in the best way? What about the concern that people might have? For example, shipping costs, delivery times, and so on. How can we eliminate these concerns? We'll also look into the checkout process, like the checkout flow, and not like in detail in every single thing, but actually looking into some of the things I learned, which might be a bit surprising. And then one of the most important things, which are how do we deal with authentication, login and password. How many of you love creating accounts on the web? Not even one? Okay, so tough crowd, I get that. That's okay. But in fact, this is not something we all love to do, but very often this is something that e-commerce really requires us to do because they need emails. They need to be able to collect emails so they can send spam, basically, right? Now we have to do it slightly differently. But before we go there, I just want to kind of maybe spend 5 minutes looking into, maybe a little bit inspire some of you, because I guess that most of you are here, just sitting here in the room, would be designers. Am I correct? Who is a designer? Who is a developer? Who is the developer? Diviner, that kind. So we have hybrids as well. That's okay. But it's very important, I think, at this point, when we're looking to design, to go and explore what design actually means in our landscape. If we go outside and look at our competitors, chances are high that they're going to be pretty good. They might not be like remarkably good, but they will be pretty decent. Now, if you want to stand out, we need to do more than just being good. We need to inject our personality into what we do. The question is, how are we going to do this? This is not an easy thing to do. Right? You might say, well, let's just come up with a mascot and that's it. No, this is not that easy. Now, why not? As it turns out, this is my understanding of what the creative process looks like today. When we're building, when we're designing, when we're creative, and it can be design or development, it turns out that the process itself is often weird and complicated because it involves people and systems and organizations which often are weird and complicated. And it has to deal with the fact that many managers tend to think that this is a creative process. You start somewhere. Oh, that's not right. Confusing. That's really good. So you start somewhere and go, and you iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate until at some point you hit the finish line and you are done, right? But to me, creative process looks much more like this, where every single point of time throughout the design process, we start and we explore all kinds of options. It's not that we always have only one option, we have tons of options to consider. And every single time we don't know what to do, we might end up in this dead end right here, when we have to recover from it, and this is where we're losing time. And because we don't like losing time, we tend to rely on things that used to work in the past, like patterns. How many of you have seen this before? Which one of these two possible websites are you currently designing? There are two. There is one on the left and one on the right, and the only difference between them, beyond the grid, the 12-column grid, is that sometimes the carousel is on the top and sometimes it's on the bottom, right? But everything else is pretty much consistently the same. And I think the reason for it is that we're sometimes kind of losing the big picture, not because we're lazy. I mean, we're all smart people here solving quite complicated problems. It's not that we are, just rely on things that used to work in the past. It's just we are perfectionists, at least some of us, and we tend to kind of forget the big picture by really optimizing in this microservices, in microcosmos that we're living in. So we're pushing pixels a lot. How many of you had this conversation maybe recently? So, let's change the opacity from 0.7 to 0.6. No, let's go 0.8. And then 2 weeks later, 0.4, right? Does it matter? Well, maybe it does, but maybe it's not that important. Because if you look into the iteration of, like desktop design here, yes, there is difference between this one and this one. There are more features and so on, but it's pretty much the same thing. Maybe we should be reinventing this toolbar altogether, kind of thinking about what we can do beyond just, regular stuff. And the reason, again, for this is not only that we tend to kind of lose the big picture. Maybe sometimes we tend to stick to rules we tend to rely on rules, on best practices, because people tell us that we are supposed to do certain things and we're not supposed to do others, right? And I want us to break out of this following the rules and break stuff, like literally break it, because we can always repair it later. It's not like it's, we break it, it's broken forever. We can always repair things. Now, many of you might have had this conversation before. Somebody was going to come to you and tell you, no, you should not define the line height in pixels. That's not cool. That's not what people do these days. All right? How many of you had this conversation? Okay, you don't do that anymore. That's okay. And I'm not saying that we should, But you know, we have these rules. And then you should not base the breakpoints in your responsive design on device sizes. That's not cool. People don't do that. And you should not take the name of the Lord, performance, in vain. Right? Performance matters, so every single thing has to be performant enough and fast enough. So flat buttons, no background, no fancy textures and stuff, they're bad for performance. Well, they kind of are, but parallax, bad for performance, kill carousel, bad for performance, kill carousel. Well, yeah, but what does it leave us with in terms of creative process? Well, this is your project. You start working on a project, someone comes to you and tells you, well, we have navigation, we have content, we need to organize it, go. And you say, okay, I'm going to draw it on paper or in Photoshop or whatever you're using, Sketch. And I'm going to put in navigation and some content inside, right? Sounds familiar? But then somebody comes to you and tells you, no. That's not how it works. You should start mobile first, right? Mobile first is cool. Everybody tells you that we should be starting mobile first, not desktop first. That's not how people do that today, these days. So you say, okay, so I'm going to make my canvas smaller, right? We know how to do that. But what do we do with navigation? Now I know a magical place for navigation. I know a magical symbol or icon for navigation as well. It's universally recognized. I know where to place it. It's going to work all the time. So I'm going to just put the navigation in there and, you know, call it a day. Then somebody comes to you and tells you no. You should not use a navigation handbook icon, because if you have something important to show, like a call to action button, you don't hide it, just display it. So, you know, you say, okay, so I'm going to display that navigation, but, you know, I have the content I have to organize somehow, so I'm going to put it in here, right? Makes sense? You know what's coming? And then somebody comes to you and tells you, no, I have to make it less loud, I think, but I can't. Whatever. So, so you should not put important stuff below the fold, because, you know, the fold, mythical fold matters. So, okay, you can't put it below the fold, you have to keep it above the fold. So what do? Right, there is a nice pattern that some of us might be using of how to keep the content above the fold. But of course, so this is becoming our creative process. And I think it's a bit sad, actually. Because we can create things like this on the web. And I know that this is from print, and print is not web, but we can still learn and apply some of the principles we learned in print to the web as well. Because usually, way too often, this from print becomes this on the web, just templated. So I attended this conference with a guy called Morgan Muller speaking about storytelling in web design. And he said a couple of things that kind of stuck with me for quite some time. He said, if we want to stand out today, to outperform our competitors, we need to delight customers with a remarkable design and unique, charming personality. Be slow and mindful with an unprecedented attention to detail. When I hear unprecedented, I hear expensive and time-consuming, right? But despite that, he continued, and that's, I think, is very important, we should under-promise and over-deliver. Capture attention and guide it skillfully. On the web today, it all boils down to one single thing: outstanding storytelling to great art direction. Now, when you're building or designing your applications today, are you really actively thinking about storytelling and art direction? Or is it just kind of a part of the process, right? When I think about storytelling, I think about this, or maybe something like this, right? But I don't think about this. For me, this is not really storytelling. If you think about the user interface design, application design, it feels different. Or maybe this is, right? So MailChimp is a nice company, friendly company. They do have this mascot, but I think that this is not the point why they have a personality. They have a personality because they really honestly believe that they need to be personal, like literally being personal. So they create this color book that they will distribute on the streets to everybody. There is no link to MailChimp. Of course, it says MailChimp right here, but they just give it away for everybody. There is no call to action or so. And this color books look like this, right? It has really, lovely illustrations, but most importantly, it's a really great marker copy, or just copywriting. Hi, I'm Freddy. It's fun to be me. Is it fun to be you? Now, there is no way to answer this question in a negative way. Like, I hate myself. I hate myself. I can't stand. I stand myself. This is it, right? Well, I love eating bananas for breakfast, right? This is just so nice and kind. And don't get me wrong, I'm not stupid. Of course, it's marketing. But I would love to see more marketing like this, to be honest. And then I love being me. Do you love being you? Probably, I guess so, right? So this kind of stuck with me, and I was wondering, so in our e-commerce process, or in our web redesign in general, how could we apply this, and what would it even mean, right? Storytelling, art direction. And I found this interesting story from Tijuana Flats, which is a Mexican restaurant chain in the US. And this is the logo, and this is what they look like inside. You walk in a restaurant, you might hate the style, you might like the style, right? But they have a certain style, right? And so they have these huge walls, and they're all being painted, and graffiti artists come every now and again and repaint it. And they're quite huge. Now, these are the people in those places, and these are the walls, right? So they're quite huge. And of course, their menu reflects this personality as well, right? And of course, the website should reflect this personality as well, and it does. This is the website. At least it used to look like this a while back. I don't know if you like it or hate it, but it definitely speaks the same language in a way that they have in the halls, right? So they did a big redesign. In the spirit of flat design and trends and modern web design, they moved away from this to this. Performance, brilliant. No carousels anymore, right? No, I mean, they're using web fonts for this stuff, but no fonts here, so it's better, right? But I think there's a lot of stuff lost between this design and this design. And sometimes you can't pull off just doing whatever you like Blomberg. When was the last time you used marquee tag? Maybe you should. Why not? So for Blomberg, it was a really big decision. What do? We are not seen as important. Now, Blomberg is like many of the other news outlets out there. What's so special about Blomberg? You know, if you've been reading or following Blomberg for a while, then you're probably reading and following it. But it's not that you're a fan. So for them, it was important to rediscover who they are. So they hired a bunch of designers who were given the freedom to do whatever they wanted. And oh yeah, they did whatever they wanted all the way. But they would create stuff like this, right? But you might not like it, but it's a good design because it served its purpose. They sold out within a couple of weeks as intended. So maybe in that regard, it might be a bad design visually or interaction design specifically, but it does its job well. And so they create this stuff which is surprising to say the least, but it works very well for them because now all of a sudden they're seen as this creative kid around the block, right? Now you can of course exaggerate and go all the way. This is probably not the best example, but it still speaks its language. I mean, if you look into the Hawaii effect, which I think on the cursor, which I hope you appreciate, it's a little bit strange in a way, right? But you could apply the same idea in a more subtle way, right? If you're not like building a museum exhibition website, a gallery, or anything of that kind, you can be quite playful with that. Why not? That makes sense. Another interesting story for that is Hans Brinker Hotel. How many of you know this story? Okay. Now, remember this day. It's going to change your life forever. Maybe. So Hans Brinker Hotel is a hotel in Amsterdam. Now, the problem is it's not a good hotel, right? So what do you do if you're not a good hotel? You're not going to sell enough rooms. You're not going to get good, reviews on TripAdvisor. So what do you do? Well, for them, it was a question of having two options. Well, either we just shut it down and do something else with our lives, or we invest into the hotel to make it a bit better, to make it appear a bit better. Now, both options were not really options because they didn't have the money and didn't want to invest the money, and they kind of wanted to keep it going. So they hired this designer, who actually is not really a designer, but more like a stand-up comedian, who was paid one burrito for this job, and he was supposed to kind of rediscover the identity for this hotel. And he said, you know what? If we don't have the money or resources or efforts, we cannot put efforts to be the best hotel in the world, maybe we should be the worst hotel in the world. Right? So maybe we can tell a story of being the worst, providing the worst hotel experience in the world. So they set up a site which goes against everything that we will ever have seen or heard, right? The navigation is strange, the topography is weird. They didn't want to hire a professional photographer because it would look too professional. So they hired an amateur photographer who was given the freedom to do whatever they wanted. And yes, they kind of did. So if you look on the site, there are a lot of there's a lot of stuff happening there, a lot of strange stuff happening over there. So, yes, that's different, I would say. Quite different. Again, this is not the traditional photography you will want to see on a hotel website. But they're selling, they were selling the rooms quite well. Now they're expanding to Lisbon because they're sold out like months in advance. Because everyone wants to experience the most horrible hotel experience ever. I think that even you, some of you here, will be maybe interested around it. Now, why does it matter? Because even if you have the worst product in the world, if you wrap a story around it, people will still buy it. And if you have a decent product, then you have even more chances and better chances to actually make it work, right? And in fact, people say, well, don't do this, don't do that. Like, for example, like buttons. Well, I would say either 0 buttons or 20. Why not? There is nothing wrong with 20 like buttons. In the same way, like there is nothing wrong with pop-up. Now, this little website, which is also a hotel website, has the most annoying, but the most annoyingly delightful pop-up I've seen in my life. I would love every single site to have it. I wouldn't mind at all. Right? So you can go ahead and just try to experiment. And I know you're saying, but we have a banking application. We're serious. We can't pull that off. That's just crazy. Well, pick one thing, and that's what's kind of the defining thing for us. Pick one little thing that would define your experience. It could be something very, very subtle. Now, this guy decided to just split himself into 3 parts, and randomly show himself like this. And then if you go to other pages, it's just different background and stuff. This is one little thing that makes this website different. Another thing could be animation transitions. If you remove all the animations and all the transitions from here, it will look like every other boring portfolio website. But this little swooshy effect, like hover effect in here, this is the personality that they have, right? Another thing you could do is just maybe slow people down. That's what we decided to do, like really consciously for quite some time. Everybody is talking about, don't make people think. Well, I think that it's time to make people think actively. So maybe slowing people down is a good idea. So here, all the elements appear after each other with a little delay, right? So you have a placeholder displayed first, and then you see the content showing up, right? And there are many examples of what you can do there. Now, where does it bring us? Now, this is the stuff I just want to show to kind of inspire you, because I think that there are many things that we're kind of losing along the way. So in our e-commerce redesign, we were looking into what we can do to make things slightly better, or slightly more interesting, or slightly more engaging. So I might be jumping a little bit back and forth, but I think that we'll get the idea of what I'm after here. Let me just jump a little bit first, and I'll come back a bit later. And I want to look specifically first at some of the concerns that customers might have, because I think that they're all going to be the same to most of your customers as well, right? Now, if we look into the checkout experience, an e-commerce experience, I'm very surprised that most of us don't go on streets to protest against the regular checkout, because these are the steps we need to take in order to give somebody money. That's very strange. Imagine going to 26 steps in a, in the shopping market or so to give somebody money. That's just ridiculous. And we have to do a lot of stuff. We have to add items to the cart, we have to check shipping costs, shipping options, shipping costs, delivery times, all these things. And even then, if we are finished with all of this, we might end up with a authorization error, credit card declined, and so we need to do more steps in order to get there, right? Like, for example, again, you know the regular checkout process, and you finish it and then realize credit card declined. But you are a person, you're a human being. You want to go home to your family. You don't want to do this. So you forget about this purchase, you go home to your family, and just abandon it altogether. You forget about it. But they never forget, do they? No. They will send you emails reminding you that you forgot something, right? So you're going to receive this shopping cart recovery email. You're going to return and try and purchase again, and you're going to finally maybe get that success page, receive a confirmation email. Then you're going to wonder about the invoice. Then you have to log in. You have forgotten your password at this point. You have to recover the password. Then you have to sign in. Then you have to find where you want to download the invoice. You download it, and then you cross your fingers and hope for the best. Which is not surprisingly the reason why we have 68% of most purchases being abandoned. So 68.53 is an average documented online shopping cart abandonment in e-commerce. And I guess that most of you will know that, but that's just a staggering number. That's a big number. Basically, 70% of people who want to buy, potentially, end up not buying. that's pretty bad most of the time. And it's not necessarily because your experience is horrible. Just people do window shopping online. They just come and check around and then leave, and then they maybe come back and so on. I guess how many of you have come to a website and added something to a shopping cart and went almost through all the steps in the checkout before you have to type in the credit card data just to see the final price? That's not okay, right? So why are we forced to do this? That's just ridiculous, don't you think so? That's just weird. Why are we doing this? Like adding to a shopping cart, providing all the details, and then just to see the final price. Well, because we don't trust them, right? They screw us, they try to at least. But we're not that easy to screw, right? So we're going to show that. Now, if you look into reasons why this happens, there are 5 main reasons. First of all, hidden costs, which are not displayed by default. It could be shipping, taxes, all the other fees like credit card processing fees, things like that. Forced account creation, right? If somebody forces you to create an account, that's not something you really enjoy doing in the early morning, I guess. Right? Credit card trust, if the site doesn't look trustworthy, you're not going to buy. Then the complicated checkout process, which is just things that are just confusing, that accounts for like 20% or so. And then payment methods, that might be a big deal. If somebody likes to pay with PayPal, but you don't provide PayPal as an option, then you might lose this customer. And this is the study from 2013, and it's been repeated in 2016, and it's actually the same thing. Right? The only thing that actually showed up here is I couldn't see calculate total order cost up front. The same story. Well, website had errors or crashed. Well, if your website crashes, you shouldn't wonder why people don't buy. Right? Delivery was too slow, this kind of stuff. So you can granulate it, but most of the time it's going to be the same. And there are more studies showing exactly the same thing as well. Right? Now, surprisingly, this is a study from Baymart Pro, and they're doing a lot of. Do you know Baymart? Anybody? So they're doing a lot of e-commerce research, and some of the stuff you're going to see is from them. They did a study on top 100 American and US retailers, and they found out that in terms of usability score, how they're performing in usability tests, at best they perform average, which means that nobody is excited about buying anything online within this 100 retail e-commerce stores. So there is a lot of improvements that can be done. Now let's tackle this. Kind of look into the main things and how we can actually fix this. Now the main part is hidden costs, right? How can we deal with this and what can we do about it? Now we need to understand what do we need to convey to the user so they know exactly what they're going to pay. If you go on Walmart, at least if you went on Walmart a couple of years ago, you'll find out that before you find the final price, you have to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, well 6 in total, that's strange. I did not anticipate this. 6 screens, just to see the final price. I just don't display it. Well, there are reasons for it. They don't know where the item is going to be shipped to, right? You can select express or normal and things like that. So it all makes sense. But displaying it after you type in your credit card data is just madness. And this is what we're actually doing for a while. Now, how can you fix this? There are different options. One of them is to provide an estimated shipping based on IP, of course. That's not always going to be correct. So you are going to end up with some errors. But at least you are approximating towards what the customer might be paying in the end. It's not 0, because you don't know. It's something that's more hopefully closer to what you're going to pay. So you can just estimate it based on user's IP. Or even better, you can estimate it based on IP and browser's language. Because sometimes this information can be quite helpful together. But you cannot rely on this, of course. Right? And it's important to show not just the estimated price, but also break it down into everything that goes in it. So what you're going to pay for shipping, what you're going to pay for taxes, and so on and so forth. Now we thought maybe we can make it even better. So I saw this example a while back on the Whiskey Exchange website. When you start checking out, they're showing you this little, if you add it to the basket. Come on, just add to basket, please. And then continue. Thank you. So, right? So they're showing this right here in a shopping cart before you actually start checking out. So if you select the currency and you select where the item is going to be shipped to, they can actually update the basket to show you the total price right there. Even better maybe, why not ask it up front, all the way up front? For example, when somebody actually comes to the site. In fact, some websites actually do this. So you will see things like this happening, right? So you come to the site for the first time, they ask you whether you want your items to be shipped, and also what is your preferred currency. And they update all the prices on the product, on the entire site, based on your preferences. That makes sense. It's not that difficult either. And then you basically really eliminate this concern altogether. But you need to ask, of course, first. That kind of makes sense. And I thought maybe you can actually make it better and display it as early as we can. So for a while, we've been thinking about maybe this. You add something to a shopping cart, you have a little mini cart appearing at the right bottom corner. You tap on it, and here you can select where the item is going to be shipped to, right? And also here, we could potentially display when the item is going to be delivered, right? And then, of course, the price will be adjusted based on that. That seemed to work quite well. But then I realized maybe we can make it even better. So people were using this shipping thing, the selector, but it took a lot of space. So, many people who actually come to the site, they end up being logged in anyway because we have a quite strong community. So it didn't feel like we need to have it all the time. Or even if you're logged in, you don't need to have this selector anymore. Instead, we're saying, okay, you added to the shopping cart, so we're displaying right here when the item is going to be delivered at latest. Right? So you don't have concerns about maybe the book the book is not going to be delivered in time. And also in the sidebar, when you start checking out, on the left you find all the input fields, like the usual first name, last name, and stuff. And on the right you find the review, summary of what you're buying. And we thought that maybe it would be a good idea to put as much useful information right here. So there are no concerns at all. So we write things like, here are the taxes, here are the shipping costs, here is expected delivery time to your country, right? Using emoji. And maybe even, pay by card or PayPal free, and also shipping free. At this point, users should not have any concerns. But it was very interesting to test this version. I don't know if you can see it actually. Can you? Hopefully, yes. To test this one, where it looks like pay by card or PayPal free, against this one. Pay by debit card or credit card or PayPal for free, with radio buttons instead of just row. Now, what's better? What do you think is better? Can you see the difference? It's the same message, just communicated differently. Here we have this row basically saying pay by card or PayPal free. And here we use radio buttons instead. Who would go with the first one without radio buttons? Who would go with the second one with radio buttons? Who just wants to go home now? Okay. It turns out it's kind of a trick, which is why we ended up not using it, but this one will perform better. Because you actively make a choice for free stuff. While the other one is very passive. People like clicking radio buttons which are free, right? So this would work better, usually, most of the time. But it's not that important for us. We have a quite high conversion anyway, so we don't need to use this trick. But it actually does work better. In fact, here's a trick for you. If you have a long-form article, for example, or anything that's quite long, and you want to engage your customers or make sure that they're actually still paying attention, 3 elements you can add. You can add radio buttons, like big, large radio buttons. People will just go tap, oh, tap, 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 even if they don't do anything. Another thing is a slider. People like sliding things. They will just slide, like scroll down, all of a sudden they have a slider, and like, oh. Right? And then they're in a different mode, and then they come back to reading again. It's like a mental switch, right? And the third thing, of course, which can be annoying, is a form, anything of like form related, which would be useful for them, but probably would be seen as spam, like email subscription and stuff, right? But it was interesting, so we kind of looked into it, and it felt like, yeah, and with this little thing alone, we can eliminate all concerns about sub-row, taxes, shipping costs, delivery time, fees, charges, like full charges, and total price right there, right? But of course, if you're logged in, all the prices in the entire shop will be displayed as final prices, right? Although many people will still go and fill in all the stuff because they still don't trust us, or because they don't trust e-commerce in general, right? Now that's one thing. And another thing is also important, is to show the price in local currency. Now for you this would be probably quite okay, but for many people in Europe, this is Canadian dollar, right? I think so. Okay. So in Europe, people would get confused and end up not buying. Not because people are stupid and they can't convert. The problem is they just don't know who is going to pay how much. So if you have this in your shopping cart, who is going to carry, to take care of the exchange fees? is going to be happening on your side, on the other side, what's the currency exchange going to be, are they going to try to rip you off or not, right? So once they see something in a foreign currency, they just don't know exactly what they're going to pay, so they end up not buying after all, right? The other thing is, which is also interesting, what about shipping costs, right? Now this is fantastic. You can select between Standard and Express, but you don't know how Express is. How many days is it going to take? 3 days, 4 days, 2 days, 5 days? What about holidays? Are they included? Are they not included? How do you know, right? One thing that you can do here to make things better is every single time you include estimated arrival, as you can see on the top here. I know it looks very boring, it kind of is, and it's also quite old screenshot, but you say how many business days, and also what the price, the extra price is going to be. And instead of actually 4 to 8 business days, why not just calculate, saying you're going to receive this item at latest by this day, right? That's just more obvious this way. In fact, this is pretty much what we decided to do as well. Because if you don't provide speed or cost, people can't make a decision, they end up not making a decision at all. And it's pretty much a good idea if they buy Express, just to make sure, you should probably display something like stock availability, so they know that the item is in stock, it will be shipped to you right away. We've been having this situation where you could buy Express, but item is currently out of stock. That's very helpful, right? So that's just ridiculous. Another thing which is also interesting is that people always look for best price, right? How many of you compare on the web? You want to buy something like a washing machine, and then you go and start looking around, and this is so much fun. You start, because you don't trust anybody, you add items to shopping cart, you start filling in the forms, you go until you have to type in the credit card data, and then you memorize what the price is. Maybe you have a spreadsheet. Some people have spreadsheets. And nobody likes to compare, and nobody likes the best price. So one trick that works, and we don't use it, but you could, is to say, well, dear customer, we know how you compare. Well, you copy-paste the item, model, whatever, number, whatever, in Google, right? And then you start searching. So while you're copy-pasting, here's a little hint for you. Hey, don't go anywhere. We did price matching for you already. We have the best price. If you find a better price anywhere else, you just give us a call. We give you like 5% cheaper as a price. So for most people, it's actually enough to not go and start looking, because it's like they don't want to be honest, right? So if you display this price match tooltip, it actually does work quite well. Another thing which is also fun is reviews. Oh, this is so fun. That's just incredible. So here's a question for you. You have two products which are very similar, right? Feature-wise, and they're pretty much the same. But the first one has the average, in terms of rating, 5.0 with 12 reviews. And the other one has 4.8 with 47 reviews. Okay? So how many of you would buy the first one with 5.0? Not even one? Or one? How many of you would buy the second one? How many of you would just look for something in the middle? Okay. So the thing is, we don't trust perfect ratings. In fact, there is a perfect distribution of ratings that we are kind of consciously or unconsciously are looking for. We always need many good reviews and some bad reviews, because we will want to go and look into what is so bad about it. What is the worst thing you can expect about this, right, product? It cannot be perfect. There is no way it can be perfect. But we will be looking at what is the worst thing that can happen to you, right? So we need this. So we can't just have 1 negative and 50 positive, right? That's not going to work in terms of conversion. And I mean conversion not being just the person buying or not buying, but looking into like how much people are spending or how much money you can earn with the product. And it's the same for books and electronics and everything else. It's always the same story. Many good reviews, some bad reviews. And in fact, most people would prioritize lower average despite better rating, right? And so what does it mean for you, by the way? Well, if you have a product that's quite new and it looks very promising and it's like 5.0 and you think this is going to be great, you should actively encourage your customers to write negative reviews. This will actually help your conversion, because people don't trust, absolute ratings. And in fact, the best thing you want to achieve, something like 4.83-ish, 4.85. Well, 4.95 is already too weird. But 4.9 is okay, although it's a bit too much. 4.8, that's what you should be looking for. 4.85, yes, that's probably the best. And once you're on it, you can also make use of this available data. I think that this is not used a lot, but I think that it's really, really useful. So on Flipkart, they extract keywords from reviews to provide you with some hints about what is the worst thing you should be expecting, what is the best thing you should be expecting. So as you hover over 5-star and 1-star, doesn't play, or does play. Right, it just shows, okay, you get value for money, dual SIM card, the worst thing, low battery life, hangs, high charging time, right? In fact, you can take it to the next level and really kind of break it down into many, many details and use this information to maybe let customers sort items by keywords extracted from reviews, right? Because they tend to trust reviews more than they trust specs. And the same way, if you want to look out for like a perfect customer experience, imagine you want to buy a phone and you mostly care about what? Well, that it has a good battery life, right? That would be perfect. You go to the page, you say, well, what do you want to buy? I want to buy a smartphone with a low battery life, a long battery life, low battery life, value for money, and here are the options based and sorted by reviews that people actually submitted. Not by specs necessarily, or by both, right? Now it would require some work, it's not that trivial, but that would be like much more useful than just seeing a category of all the products, right? It kind of gives you context. In the same way, like many websites now try to experiment with the FAQ section. And this is very interesting because FAQ within the product section, within the product page, is helpful for both sides. Now, what do they do with argos.co.uk? Well, when you sign up, you can buy items, right? And then you can provide feedback to other customers who are interested in those items, right? So if you bought something and somebody asks a question, you're going to receive notification. So if you reply and the person who wants to buy it actually think that this is useful, you get some reputation points that you can use as coupon code for your next purchase. So people who want to buy are connected with people who already bought something, and that's a great connection. Because if you're looking at a camera on a phone, you can just ask a question right away, not to the company, but the customer who are actually using this item, right? That's very useful. Finally, the other thing that's also important is payment. And when we talk about payment, we usually talk about this. How many of you have seen these beauties before? Right? They're everywhere. Are you using them? Sometimes, maybe. So, if you look, this is a kind of like classical example from the US. If you ask around, like, what badge gives you the most sense of trust? This is what you're going to get, right? Norton, Secure, we have nothing to do with the web at all, by the way. And then you have this stuff, which is like people, whatever. And in fact, I was in a usability study, a usability interview. It was very strange. So we added Norton Secure to the site, in the fancy gray credit card input field, and all of a sudden conversion dropped. Not significantly, but it definitely didn't increase. Can you guess why? So before that, the baseline was just no badge, just gray board, gray background, and looks secure, HTTPS, everything. So we added this thing, conversion dropped. That sounds weird, right? People say, well, this gives me the sense of trust. Well, the thing is, they give them a sense of trust, but they also start worrying about confidentiality, security, confidentiality, and security, stuff like that, right? So all of a sudden, they think about, so should I be worried about my credit card or not? And that guy specifically, in the user interview, he was just, I never forget that. So he basically said, well, normally when I run Norton, it's because I have viruses on my machine. So I wasn't certain if I should type in my real credit card data or my boss's credit card data because I don't know if you have viruses in your machine. Well, we laugh about it, but this is like, if you don't have the technical understanding of what's happening, you kind of try to connect the dots, right? So people start worrying about because they don't know should they trust or should they not trust. So the best thing, just add a green padlock icon that works like magic. It's way better than anything else. Just mimic the Chrome one, the Chrome lock. This is going to be fine and free. Right? That's cool. Yeah, so in that case, actually, the one without that guild trust would work better. Right? So that's interesting. And when it comes to credit card design, we can, I don't know. At this point, people say, well, don't do skeuomorphy. Well, why not? It's actually very clear, right? I mean, it's in Russian, but beyond that, it's very clear. You just type in exactly how it is on your credit card and you're kind of done. Why not? So this is what we ended up doing. But again, I don't think that this is any different. Of course, the lock. Forget about the lock. We actually added the lock right here as well. It's important. The lock is important. Padlock is very important. Right? So that's about the concern that people might have. There are a couple of other things we need to keep in mind. I have no idea how I'm doing on time, by the way. I'm supposed to finish now.
Yeah.
No way. I maybe in like 15, 20 more minutes. Maybe. Right. So that we have already. Just a second. I need to jump. Another thing that is also interesting, and it's kind of everywhere. Now, once we've had the hidden cost and kind of the main culprits, one thing we need to look into how we're going to design the checkout process a bit better. And one thing that's always becoming an issue is the guest checkout, because again, most companies need email addresses. They need customers who sign up, so they can't just say, let's just do guest checkout and we don't care about email. But so we were wondering, so how can we make it better? Because nobody wants to create a guest checkout, right? Nobody wants to create an account. So in most cases, you will find out, like a lot of studies, which say that forcing users to create an account is damaging. You will see like 20, 30%, 25% people will leave due to forced account creation unless they already have an account. And by the way, most of you must have had this conversation before. Like, so do we need a UX department for e-commerce? Let's just do what Amazon does. Amazon, it works for Amazon, probably works for us as well. Such a bad idea. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Because the problem that Amazon have and the priorities that Amazon has are very different from your little shop. You need to fight for every single customer. Every single customer has to be transformed, or every single visitor has to be transformed. While most Amazon customers are already, Amazon customers, so they don't have to worry about it that much. So you can't just say that. In the same way, I'm totally debating now, but I was having this conversation when I was working with a famous car manufacturer in Germany. And we were having this discussion because they were going to responsive, and they talked about the car configurator, right? So, quote, well, we don't have any mobile users who are buying cars on the phone. So we don't need a car configurator that's responsive as well. Car configurator being like you can select the car of your dream and then buy it online, right? Quotation ends. Well, have you ever asked yourself why people don't buy on mobile? Maybe because you don't really have a car configurator or so. But this was really interesting because they're like going back and forth and back and forth. And what we found out in user interviews, and it was a really interesting user interview, that some people, or a few people, will admit one single thing. We need to keep in mind in these scenarios, whenever you have something expensive that you want to buy, there's one specific scenario that nobody wants to talk about. Now, when do people have time these days? Not now, you're busy here. People have time when they're alone, most of the time when they're on the toilet, right? And this is where they're actually playing with this idea of buying something. If you want to buy a fancy car, you have time, so you will be exploring this, right? So of course you cannot connect the dots. You cannot say that person was looking at the car on the toilet, and then 2 weeks later they went to the store and bought it. And nobody will admit that. Right? This is just ridiculous. You cannot say this is a user journey. Right? This is not how it works. But because people have time, they will be exploring and kind of playing with this idea of buying that expensive thing. Right? So this is why car, which doesn't like the car configurator, which is probably not going to sell on mobile, it might actually make you move one step closer to actually making that decision after all. Totally out of line here, but still important. So guest checkout, what did we decide to do? Now, we had, actually, I can actually show it later, we don't have to like do this entire talk thing here. But we decided that maybe we can just avoid the mention of sign up altogether. So we kind of, we have forbidden the word account in the interface. We have forbidden the word sign up, because nobody wants to sign up. You can use this progressive sign up if you like. We just give the customers what they want. They want to add an item to the shopping cart, they type in the email address, that's it, and they move on. And then later, when they want to save their data, they can actually create an account. But not in the beginning, not forcing them to create an account. And in fact, this is a kind of a tricky part in here. So we have guest checkout by default, even if you have an account. What does it mean? Now, we never ask you to log in. I mean, there is this nice little link, like log in if you really want to, but many people just skip it. And this is very important. So when you have, imagine you have an account, right? And you just, with autofill, we are pre-filling using local storage, we're pre-filling everything. So you just have to click next, 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 and you're pretty much done, right? We're not asking you for password, we're not asking you for login. Now why? Well, because we don't want to interrupt this flow, right? We don't want you to recover your password if you've forgotten your password. We just want you to kind of click next, next, and done. Pretty much like Amazon one-click checkout, just with 3 clicks, in a way, right? But the thing is this. So if you are a member, if you have an account with us, you type in your email address. You don't have to provide your password. So you do the checkout, you have to type in your credit card data, of course, or verify it. And then you're going to see that order in your checkout when you sign in next time. So we never ask you to actually sign in. So privacy-wise, security-wise, it might be an issue, right? Because if somebody chooses that email address, but they pay with their credit card data, because obviously it's not going to be stored on their machine, you might end up seeing somebody else's order by your email address, right? But it never happened to us, because we have a kind of community which is quite tight. So we could actually pull it off. Another thing that we also did, I will actually better show it. It's more fun this way. Yeah, we don't have to stick to slides. So this is actually live. Let's see. So this is the process. Say you get the book. Right? Sorry about the contrast here. There are a couple of interesting things here. So first of all, there is a coupon code field. Oh, this is also another story. How many of you go to Google if you don't have a coupon code but want to kind of get a discount? Okay, everyone. Now I know that because I studied it. I studied it carefully. And we tried 5 different options, right? We could say, well, we could hide that coupon code field. We could also have a dedicated page with all the coupon codes. We could just submit a coupon code to Google and to all those coupon farms and just make sure there is one available, because everybody is following, most people are following this pattern. If you need a coupon code for Dell, for example, you will search for Dell coupon code, and then whatever it is, we have now September?
Yeah.
September 2017. You're going to try to find one, right? If you don't find one, you're going to be like, But the interesting part is, most of the time, those farms have totally outdated, because it's all about traffic for them, right? They're totally outdated, they don't care, and you know that probably, like in 9 out of 10 cases, you will not find a valid coupon code, right? But you will still try, right? So we thought, okay, so let's consider 2 use cases. One use case, somebody is going on Google trying to find a coupon code, not finding one, or not finding a valid one. They're like, okay, right? That's person number 1. Person number 2, well, they're like, okay, I'm going to go to find a coupon code, and then they search, and then they find one. They're like, wow, that actually worked, because most of the time it doesn't work. Now, these 2 people have very different motivation, and when something happens, like authorization error with the credit card, right? This person is much more likely to abandon than the other one, right? So we thought, so how can we make it better? Now, in fact, the best way to do this would be to add a coupon code, to keep it available all the time on Google. So, because people will still go, they just don't trust you, right? But we thought maybe, even if you find an invalid one, we could still make it interesting. So here, let's imagine you just go on Google and try to find one, and there is one, I don't know, Jurassic Park. Example, right? You click on cash in on the button. That's a button. Trust me, that's a button, right? You click in here. It says, this coupon code seems to be fishy. What if you try fish instead? So at this point you're like, okay, so let's try fish instead. So you're getting 1% discount. Right? So I can tell you one thing. At this point, once you had this experience, there is no way you're going to cancel a bundle. Because this is like, I mean, seriously, there is no way. Because this is kind of, nice, right? So this is like 25 cents that we're losing here, right? But it's really not a big deal, right? We are definitely gaining that customer. That's just kind of the tricky part, right? Now, there are a couple of other things that are going on here as well. One of them is this checkbox. Remember we talked about like slowing people down? Now, I saw in user interviews and when I was kind of observing people, just give them, please buy a book, right? And you give them credit cards and stuff, and they're like going through the checkout and filling stuff and think stuff, and okay, and then this is exactly the reaction I'm kind of expecting. And what do you think is going to happen here? So because many people are expecting something like, they will almost, I don't know, it's like a new thing in human nature. Whenever you see something like this, you're almost certain that this must be like, please subscribe to my fancy spammy newsletter, right? So people untick it right away, right? They're like, and they start playing with it. Clicking it like maybe 5-6 times, and then they continue. And it's like actually actively slowing people down because we're telling the story here. Now this book does something, I can't tell it because I'm going to reveal too much. But this is like, at this point, people are maybe just curious to find out what's going to happen next. Because it's a part of the story, right? I can just maybe go through this very quickly. It will be faster than the slides. Now, if you just go to all of this stuff and you type it all in, I'm on the server, so I can have to do this now. Sorry, I could use my. Okay. Fancy credit card. You can buy as much as you like with it. Yes. Okay. In fact, by the way, while we're on it, we spent a lot of time working on error messages. This was the first thing we actually did. Well, it was error messages first design, if you like. Because if you can pick up the customer at the moment when they're despaired or when they don't feel great about the experience, you can actually make a lot of stuff there. And we have a lot of like weird stuff. We didn't really think that this abbreviation for some kind of super cat food, did you? This is not a regular water CVC cup, I guess. And that keeps going. And then comes the interesting part. We need to talk also, not just about creating an account. And remember, we don't even ask you to fill in the password. But the most important part is what are we going to do with email? How many of you encountered the situation where you asked for the email and then you asked to confirm your email, so what are you going to do? You're not stupid. You're going to copy-paste the one you typed in the first place in the second little field, right? How many of you do that? Most of them. So if you made a mistake in the first place, it's just going to be carried over to the second, right? So what's the point? So we asked ourselves, so what would be a right way of asking for correct email? So when you start checking out, we don't ask you to confirm your email, but just before you hit that fancy button here with the lock, which is remarkably similar to the Chrome's green lock, right? You can actually edit your email right here, right, inline if you want to. You can change it right here. Then you finish checkout. And you can also change it right here. Right? Now, the interesting thing is, I'm pretty certain that most of you, when you encounter a message like this, what do? Well, you frantically run to your email inbox just to make sure you're going to get the confirmation box. And very often you will see people taking screenshots and saving the entire page just so that it can't screw you over, right? So we thought, okay, we know that, so we can also say, you can also send your email, send that confirmation to another email, right? And that second email that you type in here will be saved as secondary email in your account when you log in. Unfortunately, at this point, because everybody does checkout, gets checkout, we don't have a confirmation, so we don't have an account yet. We need the password, which is why we have this stuff. Set your password and get an extra $15 discount for next purchases. Have you ever were giving a coupon code for setting up a password? Well, maybe you should, because I saw 95% conversion on this link. People want to get that discount. So at this point, this is the only thing. This password is the only thing that we're missing to have actually an account set up. There is no mention of setting up an account. There is no mention of signing up at all. So you set your password, and it also says, memorable password, no limits and characters, no rules or requirements. Just pick a password you can easily remember. So here's a trick. I know you at this point. Oh well, not personal, but we will get there. So the interesting thing is that most of you have 2 to 4 kinds of passwords. So you have a Facebook password, that's very important. This is going to go all the extremes. Lowercase, uppercase, exclamation marks, semicolon, whatever. It's going to be straight. You're going to tattoo it somewhere, or you're going to put it, like write it down in a safe place, probably on your notepad or on your desktop somewhere. And this is an important password. You don't want to lose that one. This is the first one. It's very secure, very important. Very lengthy as well, usually. Second one is Gmail. That's an important one. Right? You're going to do the same thing. You're going to keep it safe. It might be like the Facebook one, but probably different. So these 2 passwords are very, very important. Right? Now, you also have a third password. You know what I'm talking about, right? That is a password you're using pretty much everywhere consistently. If an e-commerce site wants you to sign up for whatever, you're going to use that password. But they are very mean to you most of the time. They will say, no, that's not good enough for us. Right? You need to provide a secure password. So what do? Right. You use whatever that password is, and you add whatever characters you need to add. Right? Like exclamation mark or capital letters. How many of you do that? Right. So that's wonderful, right? The same way, like if when they ask you for the phone number, well, they track the format. So what do? Right. You type in your correct phone number, you change the last 2 digits. How many of you do that? A couple of people, not everyone. Okay. So we know that this is like exactly what's happening. So maybe we can make it better. Now here's the trick. Most people use a password which is kind of secure enough because they're using it everywhere consistently. Right? Because most websites will have pretty much the same safety measures. Right? The problem is if you're forced to add that exclamation mark or add that weird extra character, you're going to forget that password the moment you're going to check out. So if you need to come back later, you have to recall your password again. And this is an entire story. Many people just don't do that. Just end up not buying. Right? So we said, okay, we know that most people will be using a safe password anyway. So we're just going to accept it. Doesn't matter. So if it says A, B, C, D, E, F, then of course we'll say it's probably not that secure. Right? But most people will just type whatever they're typing anyway. So it's not a big deal. So you type in your password. And of course you can also use a passphrase. Actually, also ridiculous. So this is, it says passphrase. You can use a passphrase like honey, jar, carrot cake. It's also as secure. You have to be cautious here. Many people will use honey, jar, carrot cake. So you have to be a bit careful here. But if you're at this point, we're just typing in something, right? So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever QWERTY. That should be enough. Save it. Damn it! I already registered. I didn't expect that. Well, it's beta, so it's okay. Why does it happen? Oh, because it's not my account, damn it. I don't know the password of this stuff. Yes, it should not be displayed. You should be able to sign in and then you are inside. I will have to look at this. Interesting. Yes, because I actually have to log in here. Doesn't matter. But what's also interesting here. Oh, this is fun. So, for example, if you want to buy again and you are logged in, right? This is also fun. It just happened today. It's incredible. You have to pay -76. So this is kind of nice. So if you have an account, again, this is not what I see most of the time. You go to the first step in your checkout, everything is already done. Next. And then this is also should be pre-filled. Right? And then next, and you're kind of done. You just need to retype your CVV because it's staging. Right? So that's pretty cool. That's nice. So this is how you can kind of get away without asking too much at a given time. Okay. Yes. One more thing I have to mention here is privacy issues. We tend to ask ourselves, we tend to ask our customers about a little bit too much information. Now there is sensitive information like birthday and gender and phone number. With phone number we do exactly that trick with the phone number. Especially in the US it's really horrible. Sometimes if you just type in your phone number, they will call you, of course, and they will try to sell you something. And you call, they call, and you have a female voice telling you about the new product, and you respond, and then a robot is replying back to you. That's the worst experience you could have. It's just horrible. Which is why people just really hate kind of giving their phone number. So when it comes to privacy issues, there are a couple of things we need to keep in mind. There's one thing about the birthday. There are two kinds of websites that need the birthday, either just for marketing, right, just to send spam at a given time, or send marketing emails at a given time, or they need to be certain that you're of a certain age, right? So many websites of a certain age will just don't really care that much. So here at the Scotch Malt Business Society, you can type in the 32nd day of 43rd month of 1547, and they still let you in, right? It doesn't really matter. So Carlsberg decided to make it a bit more playful, right? Again, embedding a little bit of personality into what they do. So here, so this screenshot, this video is from last year. So in order to access the site, you need to be born prior to 1998. So if you type in 1997, you may enter the site. So if you type in 1997, no problem, you enter the site. 1999 and over, you might not enter the site. The problematic here is 1998, because you could be both older and younger than necessary, right? So they are going to ask you for the month only if they need to know the month, and they're going to ask you for the day only if they need to ask the day. And very often you need either one or the other. So you either need the day and the month to send spam, right? Or you need the year, and then maybe the month, and then maybe the day if you want to provide access to wonderful websites, right? Here's another example, which is also fun. You come to Austin Beer Works, they ask you, are you 21? And you're like, no. Huh, too bad. Well, are you at least 18? No. No. We're not making this easy. No. Right, so they kind of make the entire, wrapping a little bit of a story inside of it, which is kind of nice. Another thing is that we often talk about like personal data being like, so what is your state? Are you Mr., are you Miss, are you Mrs., this kind of stuff. Well, I would say you just don't use it at all or go overboard, because you can. So this is probably the best example I could ever find on the web. This is just remarkable. So on board New British, these are the options that you have for the title. Ready? Well, why not? You don't have to ask just 2 or 3. You can just go all the way. Maybe you want to be a lieutenant commander today, right? Or maybe you want to be a prince or princess. It doesn't matter. You can just go all the way. This is probably my favorite one, Field Marshal Lord. I always want to be one. That's pretty cool. When it comes to gender, so you always need to provide 3 options or more options. So male, female, and just something that people can actually type in. You'll find that people just don't want to share this information because they know exactly that it's used for marketing purposes. Nobody really cares about the gender, right? So they will also write something like emoji in there and stuff like that. So this is kind of gives them a way out. They don't have to provide this kind of information, right? And for the phone number, by the way, if you want to ask for the phone number, you better explain why you need a phone number. For example, to deliver items to you and stuff like that. So, but one way or another, it doesn't matter what you do. And again, in e-commerce, it could play with a lot of stuff and experiment. And sometimes you make some people angry when you do this kind of crazy experiments. And they will complain to your customer support, who will be very happy about your experiment. But I realized one thing quite fast. It doesn't matter what you do, you will always end up with not being perfect, and I think that this is a pretty good thing. And I think that at this point, we can break up things, and we can also slow people down and do whatever we want, because we can always repair and recover from this. And so what I want to leave you with is with the story of my life over the last 1.5 years, with a lot of experimentation and a lot of stuff just not being right. So I hope this is not as the same for you. Yeah, so this is the story. Yes, so yeah, I hope that you had some, so you could get some interesting bits here and there. No, not again. So you could get some interesting bits here and there. We can also talk about. We can also talk about some other things. I could also show we have like lots of stuff that we're playing with. So if you have any questions, I'm very happy to stick around and talk, and we might have some pizza left and stuff. One thing I want to mention though is that we have something coming up here in Toronto, actually. Let me just see if I can find it quickly. Namely, we have a Smashing Cup Toronto coming up, which is something I'm very excited about. And we even have the mascot. No, this one. This is our Ricardo, the illustrator for all the cats. We have like 57, 58 cats at this point. If you find all of them, we're going to send you on a business flight to any conference of your choice, including a fancy hotel and accommodation. You will not find all the cats. I know that. So for, wait a second, confusing. Too bad. I should have saved it. But we're basically coming to Toronto on somewhere in mid or late June next year. And this is going to be a very interesting conference because I was really trying very hard to find out what would be a very nice, interesting new format for a conference. Because it's always talks and it's always slides. And so for this conference, speakers are not allowed to use any slides or presentation. No keynote, no PowerPoint. So what they're going to do is live stuff. So you will see people live drawing, live sketching, live debugging, live browser profiling, live something, right? And so I'm really looking forward to this because this kind of really shows you can also interact with them, obviously. They will show the process and how they, the folder structure looks like and what the Photoshop layers are like and stuff like that. I think this is a very interesting way to explore how people work maybe better. So maybe I will meet some of you there. If not, I'm still here, so we can still meet here and talk about stuff. Right. Have any questions so far? Yes?
It's very fascinating and very interesting talk, and I see how having character makes your website or your product very appealing. And the examples that you showed were like very successful. They had character, they had a differentiation. But there are many examples where they had character, and for that very reason that didn't work, failed. So where do you get that courage to even try something different? Because after all, we are like sort of not an artist, just like we are designers.
Yes. So design is very different from art, obviously. So we're solving problems for clients, right? But I think that it doesn't have to go overboard. We may be exaggerating a little bit with the cats, right? So I get that. That's not a, it's not like a light bulb moment for me. But I think it's very important to just pick one little thing and just use it consistently. It doesn't have to be a character, right? It could be just one little thing that defines your signature. One thing that's become very important for us very quickly is to figure out what is going to be our signature. So we had the logo, right? And if you remove all the cats, it will still be our signature. We had the logo and it was tilted by 10.6 degrees. We did a redesign, it's now 11 degrees, very big step for us. But it's now 11 degrees, so we thought maybe this could be our thing. So every single thing on the side is actually tilted by 11 degrees. So you go into membership and you have your login area. By default, I need to remove this, it's auto-filled. Now I can't. Okay. Right, so it's all tilted, even the form, right? Which is not a big deal because you can always hover and tap and stuff. But it's kind of really what's different because if you look into this stuff and this stuff, this is, if you remove everything else, this is enough already to be kind of a little bit different, right? And if you go into an article, obviously, again, this is tilted, everything is tilted by 11 degrees. That could be a thing. Doesn't have to be go overboard. It just makes your product a little bit different, but it has the signature. By the way, many people are really wondering and hate this part because why do we dedicate so much area to something that's not necessary for the article? I know what they're thinking. No, it's exactly what most of you are thinking. I was running these interviews and everybody complained about it. I think it's very important because these people often don't get enough credit. They're often, written like this, in one little line with a font size of 11 pixels or so. But without them, this wouldn't exist, and the entire site wouldn't exist. So even although it's too much space, I think that it's better to give them too much space than too little. So people hate it, but I'm going to keep it this way. I'm sorry. Well, at least for now. This is also an interesting discussion, like in general. Do you follow your vision, or do you trust what people say? Do you run user interviews and figure out what works best or not? Or do you just do it despite everything? Now, what do you do? You know what I do. No, I think it's we are listening to feedback, and we have like 90 issues on GitHub that still have to be fixed. But overall, I feel like you still need to have a direction of where you're heading. And one thing I learned like the hard way from the project I was involved in, you either be the same or very different. Nothing in between. So it's like you know, sometimes you have this feeling, oh, should I kind of move it like 2 pixels up so it looks pretty much like, you know, aligned with the rest? Well, I would say it's either mathematically precise, like exactly like this, because you know this is the same code more or less, or very different. So instead of 2 or 1, let's make 15. It's the same like with like buttons. You either don't have one or have 20. There's nothing wrong with 20 like buttons, I guess. Not every website can pull it off, but you know, why not? Right? So I guess it's always a matter of kind of being consistent in one way or another, and in the end it's about kind of wrapping a story around the product to try to sell it best, but it might not succeed all the time. The product might be tough to sell, the story might not be fitting, right? So, anything else?
You have time for one more question?
1.5.
One enough.
I have a question. So a lot of the examples that you provided were really interesting, and it reminded me a little bit about
Flash.
Flash and old web, and how I think like early on, like the web was very much a playground for different ideas, and what's happening now, especially around product design and e-commerce, especially. Is around conversion rates and data and the role that data science plays in the design process, right? And I struggle with this myself because I think that there's certainly business needs and there's also, I think, creative desires for that. And I'm wondering, what's your sort of perspective?
Very good point. So we do A/B tests as well. It's not like we're saying, oh, we're going to do this because we think it's right, because I think it's right. No, but the same idea that I actually just mentioned right now with pixels, we apply to A/B testing as well. We never test red button against green button, or like slightly larger button against slightly smaller button. For us, it's like, let's take one design and let's do something entirely different and compare them. So it's like, because if we do A/B testing, I feel like maybe more often we should do AZ testing instead, like testing something very, very different. You can achieve some improvements by adjusting the button, adjusting the copywriting and so on. But I think at some point, it will be more or less stable. So you might end up in this local maximum, which might be good enough, and maybe the next idea that you have is so horrible that you're going to drop all of it, you know, to have like complete disaster. But it might be all the way different, right? The same way, like, Amazon is experimenting a lot in this space, where they're saying not just let's just improve the forms, but really totally rethink the way we're going to approach this. Right? And then, of course, with Apple Pay and stuff, we're going to have a very different experience in checkout anyway. Right? I don't think that we will be designing any forms in 2 years from now. It looks like, especially with you know, Chrome and Firefox, and I'm working on request autocomplete API or something like that, where you basically save your credit card data in browser safely, and then you just plug it in and you tap on the button and it just pre-fills everything. There is no form. Right? And then you need to confirm your identity with CVV code, and that's it. Right? So in that regard, I think that we're moving away from this. But this is what I'm talking about. So maybe we should be testing this against the conversational UI for payments. Right? Not just let's make this form smaller, shorter, 1 page checkout, 3 pages checkout, 5 pages checkout, not 5, 3 at most. And in fact, we're kind of following this principle when it comes to checkout. We want to display at most 7 to 8 input fields at a time, and then hide everything to the next step, right? But this is more like just something that empirically worked for me. We never actually measured that properly. The most critical thing, I think, doesn't matter what you do exactly, I would definitely look very closely into the UX of email, password, shipping costs. That will boost conversion, right? I mean, of course, like telephone, phone number, and this kind of stuff is also important, but it's not as important as the previous ones. And sometimes just clear enough copy is better than anything else. And also think about maybe inject one or two delightful things. I hate delight, but one or two niceties. So one example for that would be, imagine you have people, customers who sign up, right? Hopefully you have. You have members or you have customers who have login and password and stuff. Now, here's an interesting use case. What if somebody starts checking out and there is an email password associated with their account already, right? You could say, hey, log in now. You have an account already. Or you could just let it go, or maybe remind them, oh, if you check out, if you sign in, you're going to get like $5 or $10 discount. So, anything of that kind. It might sound ridiculous, why would you do that? But this is something that people will remember. Now, one example for that is Wizz Air. Wizz Air is a low-cost airline in Europe, and they're not known for great customer support, to be honest. But they have a really good UX. They're like Ryanair in that way. You know Ryanair?
Yeah.
Right, so Ryanair's website is interesting. It's actually quite well designed. They do a lot of stuff right. But one thing that they do is, with Wizz Air, you can set up an account, and then you're a member, and so you pay like 50 euros or so a year. And so if you are buying via your account, then you're going to get all prices $5 or $10 cheaper, or something like that. So if somebody hasn't signed in, right, they start checking out, but then you know that their email address already exists in the database, right? So do you let them pay this $5, $10 extra, despite the fact that they're already a customer? So what they do is say, hey, please don't continue checking out because you could save $5 if you sign in, right? That's what most people will not do. They'll say, oh, just log in and stuff, right? So this is one little thing that made me kind of really like their service. I don't like the airline per se, but I kind of appreciate that they went to this measure, so to say. Like the same way like the fish thing with us. It's one little nicety. Some people will discover this. They might tweet about it, right? And so maybe that's worth it after all. It doesn't cost too much. And you're winning this customer. Imagine we have like cheap products, like $9, $10, $20. But if you think about like a TV, and somebody types in a coupon code and it's inactive, invalid. I mean, if somebody buys a TV for like $500 or more, you can afford losing $10 just to secure that customer. You might lose them all together otherwise. So you just need to test this instead of just A/B testing. That's a very long answer to a very different question.
What's your opinion on the use of backlash on radical designs? So I think you talk a lot about like with a lot of companies in position doing small changes. So, but there are examples with companies that did major redesign, like bold redesigns, and they were met with rage and fury.
But that's what always happens, right? So nobody likes big changes. So I'm expecting many people sending very angry messages to me after we relaunch. I know that because red, because cats, different reasons, right? And some people might think this is totally weird. Just why would you do that? And this is what you have to, I guess, survive and go through. The thing is, I never believed in big bang redesigns. It's like I think I wrote an article like 6 years ago saying we will never do a big bang redesign. Now maybe I was wrong. Because it's actually a good idea to consistently improve things, to kind of find all those problems and provide an interface which is kind of clear and consistent enough and doesn't have any usability issues, right? But at the same time, you kind of still have to keep this big picture in mind, right? Maybe think about conversational form, or think about audio input, or Apple Pay thing, or Google Pay, or whatever you have. Or maybe even just provide this as an option as well. So kind of need to have both, I think. For us, it was kind of this move to a big bang redesign was not because we wanted to have a big bang redesign, but because we have this new product, which is a membership, it had to become the central point of everything. So we didn't want to, we had very different platforms. The e-commerce site was running on Shopify. I love Shopify, but we just don't need Shopify anymore. Before that, Magento. Oh, no, let's not talk about Magento. For the magazine, we were using WordPress, and we were using a Ruby platform for job board, and we were using Kirby as a CMS for conferences and stuff. So imagine you would have to create 4 accounts for 4 different products. one for job postings, one for conference tickets, one for books, one for anything else, right? That's like, and so you wouldn't be able to connect them. And now what you could do with this stuff is, if you're a member, you can just add a job posting, add a book, add a conference, and then check out in one flow, right? It's just something we couldn't achieve otherwise. So this was kind of the main move why we decided to do that. And this was also an opportunity for us to rediscover who we are. Because when we just launched, just kept going. We never actually asked ourselves what a smashing experience would be. And we started running interviews and asked people how they see smashing, instead of things like respectable professional publication, which I was always aiming for. People were saying informal, friendly, quirky, cats. And the reason for cats is because we have the main product, which is our conferences, and we have 5 conferences a year, so we promote them quite heavily on the side. So these cats are everywhere, right? So people connect us with cats. So I don't like cats. I don't like cats, but we have a lot of cats. We have a lot of cats. So, I mean, and they're everywhere. Like in print style shit, it's crazy. Actually, we invested a lot of time in print style shit because I was too lazy to think about how we're going to generate PDF otherwise. So it's actually, I can show it. That's the last thing I want to show. Because I'm kind of proud. It took me a while to build this. Because like half of the code is written by Sarah, Suedan, and the other half is by me. So if you go, let's say, to an article like this one, which is very lengthy. Now this is also something we couldn't do otherwise, right? Because we have a shopping cart and we have books and job postings and other things. It's nice. And if you go into print style sheet, please all up here. That's kind of nice. It's amazing. Wow, I think so too.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of cool. So it's like, to be honest, the best part about it is we don't need to design layout for ebooks anymore. It's just all done. It's right here. It even has footnotes and stuff. So it's like done. We can sell ebooks now. Here we go. Just combine all this together and you're done. That's pretty cool. And also, if you go, let's say, into orders, it was also interesting. So we had this problem with generating PDFs. So we were using Prince XML for a while, then custom solutions and so on. And I was just too lazy about the entire thing. And I thought maybe I could just pull it off with a print style sheet. So if you buy a, I don't know, book or something, you want to print an invoice, it's basically just a print style sheet with a hidden cat right here. Right? And that's nice. And we're using this kind of nice, I think, nice storytelling kind of thing here as well. Like, cats can be forgetful, but we are not. Thanks for being truly smashing it again, right? So there's a lot of stuff like this hidden everywhere. Don't use that one. You have never seen this. So I guess this is it. But this is the one, the fancy cat that I'm really proud of. The Felix the cat. Very proud of it. Oh. Oh no, not that one. I have to run vocal first. It's nice. And pretty There are more cats. This one. Oh, we can just do the cat stuff now. Oh, it's all right.
You guys sell t-shirts as well? Cats?
Cats.
Cat t-shirts.
T-shirts. We were thinking about cat book.
Yeah.
We have so many, so nobody over. Yes. But yeah, I think it's enough now. Yes. Do you have any more questions? Anything really? Yes.
You mentioned you moved off of Shopify.
Yes.
A lot of these sort of suggestions and tweaks, were they only possible in your new
This
platform?
is the thing. So many of the things we couldn't design the checkout the way we wanted with Shopify.
Yeah.
Very much like we couldn't do it with any other platform. Like we could do anything you want with Magento, but I don't want to. In no way I'm going to do this. We had a lot of headaches and stuff with Magento. But we could literally like lay around and introduce all kind of stuff everywhere. Like just adding this checkbox that does nothing is almost impossible, I think, in Shopify. and we want to be able to play even with this idea, like the custom error messages, everything, right? And no, we couldn't pull it off. I mean, I know that some of the things will not be able to work with a non-custom solution, but still some things will work. But really, definitely, like the padlock icon, don't forget that one. And think about the coupon codes. Just measure a person who finds an invalid coupon code and plugs it in and actually then checks out against the person who is just disappointed and just continues. It will be quite measurable.
Awesome. Let's have a big round of applause for Vitaly.